Look what I have on today. I've got a striped hat on, and I have on polka dots on my shirt. Those are my patterns. Do you have patterns on today? So let's get started with what we're going to do today. Penelope and Mr. Grinch and the little chick are here, and they're holding up all the ABCs we've been talking about in the past. We've got H and I right there, and H and I says hi. It's actually a word. But today we're going to do something totally different. See all this paper I've got? I've got lots of paper here, and then I've got some crayons, I've got some markers. We're going to do something special today. You know these crayons, which I have lots of different colors. Look at all those colors. I've got some blue and yellow and orange and green and brown and pink. I've got all sorts of colors. But do you know why I have these crayons today? I'll tell you. I went to Grace's home and I said, Grace, can I borrow some crayons? I don't have any crayons. So I asked Grace for permission if I could borrow some crayons. And Grace said, yes, Meemaw, you can borrow some crayons. So she let me go through all of her crayons, and I picked a lot of different colors, and she's letting me borrow them. When you borrow something, you have to ask the person if you can even borrow it. You say, like for instance, I said, Grace, may I borrow some crayons? And she let me borrow some crayons. To borrow means that you're going to use them for a little while, and then you're going to give them back. So with these crayons that Grace is letting me borrow, I'm going to use them for today, and then I'm going to give them back to Grace because they belong to her. So sometimes you can say to somebody, may I borrow that toy? May I use it for a little while? And the other person has to say yes, or you cannot borrow it. See, when we borrow something from somebody, we're asking their permission if we can use it. And if they say yes, that's wonderful, and it makes us happy, because then we can use what we don't have. See, I didn't have any crayons in my trailer, and I had to borrow some, and I was so excited when Grace said, yes, you can borrow some, Meemaw. But remember, if Grace had said no, then I would have to say, okay. She said no, and then I would have to find crayons someplace else. I don't know where I would find them, but I would have to do that because she said no. So remember, to borrow is to ask first for permission, and we hope they say yes. Then we can use what they have and what we don't have, right? That's a new word. You learned it today. Borrow. All right, what am I going to do with these crayons? Grace wanted to know. She said, Meemaw, what are you going to do with the crayons? And I said, well, I'm going to make something. But I wasn't sure what I was going to do. But I have decided exactly what I'm going to do. And we are going to do something called tracing. We're going to trace some objects. So I went around my trailer and I found some different circles. They're actually tops to jars, but they're in the shape of circles. And there's different ones in here. Can you see the different ones? There's different colors and different sizes because they fit inside each other, so they're different sizes. I have to have a big one and a small one. So I've got a big circle here and I've got a small circle here. Red and yellow, different sizes. and different colors. Small size, bigger size. And we're going to trace those. How do you trace? Well, we're going to find out today how we can trace things. These are different sizes also. They fit inside each other. We've got a big one, we've got a small one. We have a white one, we have a gray one. And the shape of these are circle shapes. See how we can talk and use our words and describe things? I have a small gray circle. I have a bigger white circle. I use lots of words there to tell you what I have in my hand. And they're actually a top to a jar that I took it off and I kept them so I could use them today. They're made out of plastic, and plastic is a material. We have lots of different materials in this world. Like, for instance, this is plastic. And then I have another one here. It's a circle, and it's white and purple, and it's made out of metal. It's a totally different type of material here, made out of metal. Plastic, metal. I'm using something made out of wood so that I can do my tracing on. So we have lots of different materials in this world. We have lots of different patterns. We have lots of different shapes and colors. This is a wonderful world, isn't it? Okay, so I need paper, and I've got it down here. And I needed crayons, and I have crayons. Thank you, Grace, for letting me borrow those. And I have different shapes that I'm going to trace. But what in the world is tracing? Well, it's very simple. Let me move some of this stuff aside so I have room and I can pick it up and show you what tracing is. I'm going to get closer to you so you can see. Okay. Now, probably the best thing for me right now is for me to use a piece of tape so that I can hold my paper up and you can see it. When we trace, we hold something down on a piece of paper and we just go all the way around and we trace the object. And because this object is a circle, what I made by tracing the object is a circle. It's a round circle. And I just put it on top of the paper and I traced it with my crayon. Now I'm going to make these circles go inside each other. Now I have two circles and they're right next to each other. One's inside the other. Now that was my big circle. What if I use a small circle? I can put that down on the paper also, and I hold it with my hand and I trace it with my brown crayon, and look, it's right there. 3 circles that I traced. You can trace objects and different shapes too. This is a circle. You can trace objects and you can trace other things. I've got some other things here too. But let's change our shape. What shape is this? Well, sometimes it can look like a diamond if I hold it like that. But if I hold it like this, it's a square. And it's a green square. See that color green? So I can put that down on my piece of paper here. And I can trace the square. But let me change colors. This was a brown color I was using. Now I'm going to use a red color. Let me trace the green square with my red crayon. I hold it down with my hands. And I trace it on the piece of paper. Can you see that square down there? It's hitting the circle, so it's making different designs. It's making a different pattern, isn't it? Because I'm putting the objects all over this piece of paper. Okay, so that was a square. We did our circle. Now let's find something that's, I don't know what shape it is. But look at this shape. It's still a shape. It's not a square, it's not a circle, it's not a heart, it's not a triangle, but it is a shape. And I can put that on my paper. I'm going to change crayons again. Let me use blue. Blue because this is a blue shape. I'll put it down on the paper. I'm going to hold it with my fingers and I'm going to trace it. And do you see it down here? I traced it on the paper and I made the shape on the paper. You know what else you can trace? Let's use green. You can trace your hand. That's easy to do because you just put your hand on the paper and you trace your hand. Take your crayon in your hand and trace your hand. Just go around and around and around your fingers and around your fingers and around your finger until you've done all 5 fingers. Now, can you even see the hand? Can you see that hand there? Where's it at? There's my thumb. So it's a hand shape on top of my circles, on top of my square, all different shapes on your paper. Now you can take your crayon and start coloring these shapes, or maybe you can find something else to trace, because you can trace anything. Anything that you can put on a piece of paper, as long as you have a crayon in your hand, you can trace and make a shape on your paper. Okay, I think I'm going to trade and get another piece of paper here though. So I have myself a nice clean sheet of paper here because I'm going to do something else. I'm going to trace something different. I went outside and I found some things that I could trace. I found a leaf I could trace. I found a rock that maybe I can trace. So let's try tracing the leaf. You just take it, you put it down on your paper. You're going to have to hold it so that it stays nice and flat. And let's see, what color haven't I used? How about orange? I'm going to use an orange crayon and trace this leaf. I just hold down the leaf and I go around it and around all the way, doing the shape that it has on the leaf. Until I'm all done. Gotta make sure I don't break the leaf because it's pretty crackly. It's a dry leaf. And there's my leaf on my paper. So I just traced one leaf. Now let's trace the rock. How are we going to do that? This rock has different sides to it. Look at that. It has all different sides to it. You can pick any side you want and trace it. You just hold that rock down on your paper. Take your crayon, any color you want. Let's take blue again. And I'm going to hold the rock down and I'm going to go around and around until I have it all traced. Now, what kind of shape did it make? Look at that shape down there. Look at that shape down there. The rock made a pretty funny shape, didn't it? You can trace all sorts of things. There are so many things that you can trace. Just remember to ask Mommy to give you a piece of paper so you can write on the paper, because that's what we use to write on and color on. Nothing else but paper. Now, I've got a different shape here. Look at this blue looking thing. I think this shape, it reminds me of a fish. Look, it's an oval shape, and now it has these little things that go up and down here, and it looks like a fish to me. So what I can do is I can trace this shape, and then I can turn it into a fish. I'm going to use blue again because it's blue already. And you just take your crayon and you just go around the whole object here. And see? It almost looks like a fish, almost. Maybe if I make it look more like a fish by coloring it a little bit. And it needs an eye, because fishes have eyes. And you know what else fishes have? They have a mouth, but they also have a fin. And a fin is something that they use for swimming. So I had a lot of fun using this shape and turning it into a fish on a piece of paper. After tracing it, I just did some more drawing. I drew an eye and I drew a mouth, and then I colored it some more and I just added some squiggly lines. I gave it a fin so it could swim. And now my tracing turned into a picture. You can have fun tracing too. You can go outside if you want to and find some leaves or a rock. Or you can go inside your room and find some objects to trace. Like I didn't have anything but tops that were circles that I found off of jars, and I just kept them so that I would have different things to trace. And then I found this funny object, and then I even traced my hand, remember? Because you can put your hand on the piece of paper and take your crayon and just go around and trace your hand. And that's what tracing is. You can use your crayons or you can use markers to trace, as long as you have a piece of paper. Now, do you remember about my crayons here that I borrowed from Grace? Since I borrowed them, I'm going to have to give them back to her. So I have a little bag here, and I'll just put her crayons inside this bag. And then next time that I see Grace, I'm going to say, "Thank you for letting me borrow your crayons." And then I'll give her her crayons back, because all I did was borrow them. That means I just used them for a little while. All right, that's it for today. I hope you had a fun time tracing. If not, see if you can get some paper and get some crayons and ask your mommy or your daddy if you're allowed to do some tracing today. And then sit down nice and comfortable and make sure you only write on the paper. Don't write on any place else, just on top of the paper. And you can trace. Go find yourself some different objects that you can trace, different sizes and different shapes, and just have some fun tracing today. I love you, and goodbye. Have a great and wonderful day. Bye-bye.